What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2. And while, as y'all know, it is Wednesday, which means the new summit is now live here on the game. And for this week, we have the Detroit Tour bring us the Arena tire. I do feel like that tire is going to look pretty interesting depending on the vehicles. I feel like that would look kind of hilarious on some of the Rally Raid trucks, but nonetheless, in gold, we have the legendary half set boosted for the Alpha GP cars. I really do think any Nitro Chemist set is going to be insanely useful. I do believe this summit has only been out like maybe one or two times in the entire game's life cycle, so I would say the Race Truck Ghost Recon's probably going to be pretty dang rare. I will definitely be doing a video on this truck as well, guys, so definitely stay tuned. I really do feel like this is one of the coolest looking Raptors in the Crew 2, and it's also pretty dang fun to drive as well, but we're also going to have an off-road escape as well, which if I had to guess, you most likely have to use a hypercar on this one. Then we're also going to have a monster truck event and or a jet sprint race as well, but I really do think that Raptor is going to be worth it. And then in silver we have the legendary half set for the street class, and I feel like followers and or pure on a Fame Magnet set's actually pretty decent. But moving over to the next summit though is going to be Best of USST next. Now one thing I did mention last week, guys, is you can see on the cover there, you not only see a rallycross and or street car in the front, you also see touring cars and or Alpha GP vehicles as well, so I really am interested if maybe we can mix the races together. I feel like that's going to be pretty dang fun as well, but in Platinum we have the Evolution tire, which looks kind of interesting. And going higher speeds with this tire is probably going to look pretty insane, especially how bright the sidewalls of this tire is. And then in gold, we're going to have the Red Bull RB13, which if you guys haven't used this car since the handling update, I would definitely recommend jumping back into this vehicle. And of course, if you guys do own this car, you're also going to get the money back for that. But moving over to the next summit, the Alfa Romeo 4C is definitely going to be one of those cars we probably don't see all that often. I really do hope we probably see more of this car in the future, especially looking the way this one does. That livery and or color setup on this thing looks pretty awesome. And it also does look like the interior is going to have some nice detail with the way the seat is also green. And then in gold we have the Italian Nitro, which I have been messing around with some more of these Nitros recently, so it's going to be nice to have another one. And then in silver we have the second part of that Nitro Chemist set for the Alpha GP cars, so overall, the upcoming summits are looking pretty dang cool, especially having an Alfa Romeo getting some love. I really do not remember the last time one of these cars actually had a different version of one of the regular cars, so I really do hope this new 4C is actually going to be a good street car, and I also really do love to see this Raptor make a return, because it's still one of the best looking Rally Raid vehicles in the Crew 2. So moving over to Detroit Tour here, starting off with the first skill is going to be a low altitude. For this one, guys, I once again use the Zivko Edge 540 V3 because I don't really see a point of running a different plane. You can easily run something like the Harman Rocket 3 as well, but I just find the Zivko Edge to be so dang good. It's going to be kind of hard for me to pick that plane, but the Harman Rocket 3 can also do this one as well, but I would definitely try out the Zivko. And luckily doing the low altitudes, I would probably say this is going to be the easiest skill in the Crew 2, especially if you guys do have a score breaker set on your plane as well. But moving over to the next skill is going to be an escape, and for this one, it's actually going to be on the water, so you can run the 1414 Demon. I would most likely say this is going to be the only boat you're going to see though. The 1414 Demon to this day is still probably going to be the best boat in the powerboat category. I really do think this boat can actually do everything from escapes to buoy smashing. And speaking of the buoy smashing skills, guys, we also have one of those in this summit as well. But for this one, instead of me running the 1414 Demon, which is also going to be a great option, I decided to jump into the Vector Speedster V40R, which for me though is by far going to be my favorite boat for these slaloms and or the buoy smashing as well. I really do love the way the Vector feels around corners compared to the Demon. I really do feel like it's going to have a lot more agility, so I would definitely recommend trying this thing out. And I really do think the 3 skills in this summit are going to be pretty dang fun, and luckily aren't going to be insanely annoying like this off-road escape will most likely be next summit. But besides that, guys, moving over to the next event though is going to be a hovercraft race. And for this, guys, I would say a lot of players are probably not the biggest fan of the hovercrafts. I'm also going to be one of those people because I really don't try insanely hard on these events, mainly because I'm not the biggest fan of how these things do handle, which I would say a lot of players think the same way. If you guys do have a Nitrochemist set, definitely have Drifty on there though. These hovercrafts love to drift around all over the dang place, so you can luckily have nitrous the entire time, which I would say is going to make this at least a little less annoying than it already is. But moving over to the next event though is going to be a street race, and you will be able to use the Ford Mustang Shelby GT500 Road Force 1 Edition, which is probably going to be a pretty rare car. I'm not the biggest fan of this car, which I would say a lot of players most likely don't use it. This thing is also not going to be a terrible street car, though it does handle nicely, and it's also going to be decently fast. So the biggest one on this though, guys, is watch out for those corners because they really do come up pretty dang fast as well, and you definitely do not want to run into the guardrails and or get stuck on them. They will definitely slow you down a lot, and I did notice around corners it's also sometimes hard to get off of the guardrails, and you basically skid around them going a lot slower than you should be. But moving over to the next event, guys, is going to be a new Alpha GP race, and for this one I decided to run the Proto Concept Pulse Performance, which I would say is going to be a pretty odd vehicle to actually see in this. Most players are probably going to run the Proto Alpha Mark II, which I do still think to this day that car is going to be the most used Alpha GP vehicle, especially after that handling update. That thing is honestly insane. For me though, I would recommend trying out the Concept Pulse Performance. This thing honestly did not do all that bad, and I also do recommend, guys, being an automatic is going to make these races a lot easier. I did notice doing them in manual can honestly be kind of annoying. And then moving over to the next event is going to be another street race, and for this one you actually get to drive the Chrysler 300 SRT8, which to my surprise is actually a pretty cool looking car. I don't think I really see that many of these in real life because I do think a lot more people have Chargers, but I really do think the Chrysler 300 is a pretty dope car overall. And to my surprise, guys, the car doesn't handle all that bad, and it also does have some pretty decent speed overall. The biggest thing about this event though is there really is going to be a lot of corners, so definitely watch out for those. And my goodness, those trees can definitely get insanely annoying. But moving over to the second to last event is going to be a drag race, and for this one I actually decided to run the Camaro SS, which obviously you basically have to run this car, so it's not going to be the best drag car in the game, but I wouldn't say it's going to be the worst either. I'm also not the biggest fan of drag racing in the Crew 2. I just don't find it all that fun. I wouldn't say it's going to be terrible, but I do think a lot of players most likely don't like it. And if you guys are trying to get an insanely high score on this, you're most likely going to have to slipstream somebody, so definitely keep that in mind for this one. But I would say 125 plus K, you're most likely going to do just fine in Platinum as well. But moving over to the final event in the summit though, you're going to have to use a hypercar of your choice in one of the US Speed Tour Alpha GP races, which I really do find these races to be insanely fun to do, and you guys really can use any of the hypercars on this one. In the leaderboards though, you're most likely only going to see the Super Sport 300 and or the lovely Tempesta as well, because the Tempesta is honestly incredible. It really does make sense on why the Tempesta is being used a lot though, because this event does have a lot of turns, and the Tempesta is going to be incredible with its handling, so it really does make sense on why that car is the quote-unquote meta. But I do have to admit it, guys, I would recommend trying out the Bugatti Veyron. I really do consider this car to be slightly underrated, and or the Super Sport 300 Plus is also going to be used a lot as well. But my goodness, definitely try out something like the Veyron. I think it is pretty dang good. It's probably not going to be as good as like the Tempesta, but I really do think it's going to be up there overall. I feel like a lot of players are actually going to like this Summit, and even that new Alpha GP race was honestly pretty dang awesome. But if you guys have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Let's jump right into this.
you